So, in 2013, my husband Bob and I were sitting on the couch in our living room when the telephone rang. Much to our surprise, it was President Obama on the other line. And he was calling to ask my husband if he wanted to be the U.S. ambassador to Portugal. You cannot imagine how excited we were by this phone call. It was a once-in-a-lifetime call, for sure. Well, something you probably don't know, when you're nominated by the president to be an ambassador, not only you, as the ambassadorial nominee, but your spouse is required to go to ambassador school. Ambassador school takes place at the Foreign Service Institute in Virginia, and it lasts for 2 weeks. It's a great program, but for me, it was a little problematic because I was running a business that I created 20 years ago, and I knew I couldn't be in Virginia for those full 2 weeks because I needed to be working back at my company. Nonetheless, I was going to do what I could to be there as frequently as possible. So, we get to our first week of classes, and the class that stands out the most was the class on what is an ambassadorial spouse's role when she, because typically it's a she, gets overseas. And what I hear is that an ambassador spouse's role is about promoting art, promoting literature, promoting music. It's about organizing the diplomatic bazaar. It is about hosting and attending events with other diplomatic spouses. It's also about hosting and attending formal receptions and dinners with the ambassador. Well, I started getting a little more apprehensive because, well, for 2 reasons. The first was my interest really isn't in culture. My interest is really in business. And the second part was, because I had this business in the United States that I was running, although I wanted to be in Portugal frequently, the reality was that I was going to be in Boston more than Portugal, and so the idea of having to host and attend all these receptions were just not a reality for me. Well, my fear got even larger. The following week, we had a workshop on media training. And of course, because I had to be in Boston the day before the workshop for my own business, I missed receiving the homework assignment. But when I flew into Virginia that night, I spoke to Bob and I asked him for my homework assignment. And he gave me the homework assignment. And the homework assignment said, think about a world event, something that's going on that's really important, and think of the U.S.'s role in that event, and be ready to speak on it in class for about 5 minutes the next day. So I read the papers, and something that really fascinated me at the time was the Mideast peace talks. And I studied it, I prepared, and Bob and I arrive at the Foreign Service Institute the next morning. And we saw something that really surprised me. There was a sign to the right that said ambassadors meeting training, and there was one to the left that said ambassadors spouses media training. I said, okay. I went to my media training, I sat down, and the instructor got up and she called on the first spouse. The spouse happened to have been the wife of the ambassador to Belize. And she got up there and she started talking about how much she loved scuba diving and how she cannot wait to scuba dive in Belize, and about the beautiful fish and the turquoise waters. And I was in shock because this was nothing about world events. And when she finished, the instructor said, You did an incredible job. That was wonderful. And I'm in even more shock. But, okay, well, it so happens I got called next by the instructor. And I got up and I was very nervous and I stood there and I started talking about the Mideast peace talks. And all of a sudden I hear, "Stop! Who do you think you are, an ambassador?" And I didn't understand. And I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Your homework assignment." I said, "Here's my homework assignment." And I gave her what my husband had given to me. And she looked at me and she said, "That wasn't your homework assignment. That was the ambassador's homework assignment." The spouses were supposed to talk about culture. Well, I was now in a really bad place because not only, again, was I not interested in talking about something I'm not interested in talking about, but in some ways what was worse to me was that I wasn't able to speak about the things that mattered to me. So still, I felt so incredibly lucky for the opportunity that Bob and I had been given by President Obama. So regardless of what went on in ambassadorial school, what I knew is that I really wanted to build a bridge between the US and Portugal, and I really wanted, in whatever I did, to make a lasting positive impact on the Portuguese people. Bob and I arrived here in April of 2014. And when we arrived here, I was here for 1 full week before I had to go back to Boston. But during that first week, we hosted a breakfast for the American Chamber of Commerce. And it was there, and through the discussions I heard from the 25 people there, and by the way, 24 of them were men. There was only one woman country manager there. But what they spoke about was the Portuguese economy, which had been in its 7th year of an economic downturn. And it was so clear the impact the economy was having on the country. And what was clear to me is that the economy was not just impacting the country, but it was impacting the spirit of the Portuguese people. So it was obvious that one of the things that Portugal needed most in 2014 was an economic boost of some sort. Well, at the same time, I also recognized a great untapped resource in Portugal, and that is Portuguese women. Studies prove that when women thrive, the economy thrives. There are a number of reports out there, including the McKinsey report on diversity, that say when women are also in leadership positions, companies have greater profitability and they actually recover more quickly from economic downturns. And despite the fact that there were more women graduating with graduate degrees from Portuguese universities, still women held less than 10% of the leadership positions in corporations in Portugal. And the women that did hold higher positions made 25% less than their male counterparts. And the one thing that I know well and that I am passionate about is growing businesses and understanding what it's like as a woman in business to deal with inequality. And so it was at that point I had my aha moment. And what I realized I needed to do and what I could do to make that long and lasting difference was to take the opportunities that I had in the United States as a small business owner that most benefited my business and bring them to Portugal. And I now knew the bridge I wanted to create. And that bridge has a name, and it is Connect to Success. And Connect to Success's mission is to help grow the Portuguese economy by supporting the creation and growth of women-owned businesses. The program has 4 main initiatives. Each one of the initiatives is free, and each one of the initiatives relate to connecting with the women of Portugal with other people as well as with resources. The first component of the program is a corporate mentoring program where a team of subject matter experts work with a woman business owner over the course of a year to help her work on instead of in her business. The second component is an MBA Master's Consulting Program, where a group of students from the top universities in Portugal will serve as business consultants for a woman-owned business to help her solve a specific business problem over the course of the semester. This program also connects Portuguese business students with real practical experience. The third component are workshops that offer both practical business skills as well as soft skills. And the last component, which is directly a people-to-people connection, is networking, something that has been missing in Portugal for women. You know, it was fairly amazing that this program, which really took American values such as corporate social responsibility, gender equality, and entrepreneurship, and brought them to Portugal. It was amazing that this program that was actually started by an ambassador's spouse became the embassy's flagship initiative. And what I really want to tell you about now are the results, because that's what really matters. Today, it's 3 years after the program began. My husband and I are no longer in Portugal. It's been almost a year since my husband was the ambassador, but we have 902 women registered in the program. We are on to our 4th corporate mentoring edition. We have already helped 98 women-owned businesses through corporate mentoring. We're on our 6th edition of the MBA Master's Consulting Program. We've helped 75 women-owned businesses solve specific problems. We've provided real practical experience to more than 250 business students in Portugal. On top of that, we now have had almost 70 workshops, helping close to 1,500 people. It's been absolutely amazing. On top of that, we are now in the Azores, and we are expanding to Africa. But what I really learned and what I really realized is that bridges are about people and connecting people. And it doesn't really matter whether the bridge is centered around scuba diving, culture, or economic initiatives. What matters most to have a strong and sustainable bridge is that that bridge, and that bridge diplomatic or otherwise, be built with passion, authenticity, and commitment. Thank you.